The Boston Celtics have failed to make one of the greatest comebacks in NBA history. They lost Game 7 to the Miami Heat in Boston, and now it's time to talk about what they should do this offseason. They were very close. Derek White made an amazing tip in to get this team to have a Game 7, but unfortunately, they were not able to get it done. Actually, very fortunately, as I'm not a fan of Boston at all. But we are today going to talk about what they should do this offseason. I think it's time to split up Jalen and Jason. To me, they remind me of LeBron and Kyrie. They just have too much similarities. They always want the ball and they don't seem to fit together. We see that Jalen Brown isn't very happy, and losing to Miami is taking a step back as they were unable to make it to the finals. And honestly, I don't think this team's good enough to win the championship. I don't think they would have matched up well with Denver. And I think Milwaukee, if they were able to avoid a Giannis injury, would have been able to beat them as well, as they did a lot to make their team better than the team that lost to Boston last year, where Boston seems to be the same squad. They just added role players, and Jalen and Jason Tatum didn't really take huge steps forward in their development. I think what this team needs mainly is better guard play and a better front court. The moves that I think they should make is move on from Jalen Brown, give Jalen a chance to go be. It's more of he's going to be the second star somewhere else, but to be the second star on a team that the main star isn't someone that does the same thing that he does, someone that's different, whether it be a team with a big or a team with a dominant point guard like the Portland Trailblazers, which is where I have this trade being. I think Jalen and Dame Lillard is a great combo. You send Anthony Simons to Boston, you send Al Horford, get rid of his contract, and this clears up space to bring another big. You have Matisse Thybulle's cap hold in this. You could also use Jeremy Grant's cap hold, and Jeremy Grant would be a decent pick, but mainly the Celtics get Anthony Simons to be the shooting guard, and they get the number 3 pick, and are going to be able to select Scoot Henderson to be their point guard. Having a dominant point guard and a good mainly shooting guard where Jalen Brown is more of a small forward than a shooting guard, I think it's going to pair well with Jason Tatum. And then you just moved $10 million off your capital by getting rid of Al Horford. I think it's better for them to play Robert Williams, and it'd be a better unit anyway. And this would allow their lineup to look a lot better, a lot more depth, and a lot more options for Coach Mazzulla to throw out. The Celtics still would have Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, and Derek White. These three guards, along with the two guards they bring in, they would have one of the best set of guards, best roster full of guards in the NBA. They'll always have good guards on the floor. The minutes where they have Jason Tatum on the floor would be very dominant with all of these good guard plays. I think Marcus Smart and Derek White and even Malcolm Brogdon, they're good veterans that could really help development of the Anthony Simons and Scoot Henderson, as they're both young guards, but mainly Scoot because if he can become the elite guard and potential number 1 pick that he talks about being alongside Jason Tatum, that is a real dynamic duo there. And now you have a true point guard instead of having the ball always be in the hands of wings. You have a guard. I think another move they could look to doing is, like I said, bringing in Jeremy Grant. I think Jeremy Grant's a good player, and I don't think he's going to be staying in Portland. And whether he comes over in this trade package or he gets moved on, you sign him in free agency later. Another thing to look into would be a DeAndre Ayton trade. This would be where you have to give up Malcolm Brogdon or Derek White, but the Suns definitely want to move on and they want to get some depth back. The Celtics have some depth to give up, especially if they get Anthony Simons and Scoot Henderson. And so you'd have depth at the guard spot. You could send some guards over to get DeAndre Ayton, maybe include Robert Williams too, and you have an upgrade at center, someone that has a better mid-range touch, better offensive game than Robert Williams does. But the main thing to focus on is who you got to beat. A lot of teams like the Celtics that are going for a championship have to beat Denver, who's one of the most dominant teams in the league, and they're going to have to beat Milwaukee when Giannis is healthy. And to do this, you need good big presence to guard these guys. There's a lot of dominant bigs. That's the hardest position to match up with in the NBA right now is these dominant centers and power forwards that we see on other teams. So Boston's going to have to do that because even though they lost to Miami, they are focused on winning a championship. They're focused on beating Denver, and they're focused on beating Milwaukee more than they're focused on beating uh, Miami. And I think another thing they should do is bring in a better veteran presence. I just don't think Al Horford is the guy that is your veteran presence. You need Jason Tatum to step in and be it, and maybe you go out and get more veteran presence in your locker room. Blake Griffin's certainly not the guy that really helps out. I think a guy they could look towards is PJ Tucker, as every team that's been competing for a championship the past 3 years seems to just bring him in and let him go. Milwaukee brought him in, won a championship. Miami brought him in, was the 1 seed, and then Philly just brought him in last year. Everybody seems to let him go, and that's how I think Al Horford should be treated. You just bring him in for a year, let him help out, and then move on from him. Boston keeps trying to milk stuff out of him. This is his second stint in Boston, and Al Horford plays good basketball, but he's clearly not working. He's never won a championship. He's tied for the all-time record in playoff games played without winning a championship, and is clearly a reason behind that. He's just not a good enough player, and whatever he's doing off the floor and trying to be the coach, it's not working and it's not getting done. Also, Boston needs to get rid of Grant Williams. You got to move on from these guys that are just kind of taking up space on the roster. There's a lot of good free agents available that can be better depth than what you have. They have good depth now, but they don't have great depth. Making this move allows you to get great depth. You have a real superstar in Jason Tatum, and you're gonna have a lot of really good players surrounding him, and you're gonna have a lot of guys. You're gonna have two guys that could be potential stars. Anthony Simons, we've seen him be really good, and Scoot Henderson is gonna be a top draft pick for a reason. Who knows what he's gonna do in the future? And maybe they have the ability to bring in a DeAndre Ayton or another star big. I think Mitchell Robinson's a name that they could get if they think Mitchell Robinson's better than Robert Williams. But also they could stay with Robert Williams. I think he's a really good big. But mainly I think their focus should be moving on from other players than it should be adding big names. I know Boston fans are going to want Dame when they hear me talk about a Portland trade, but I think going younger is better. And I know they want to win a championship now, but Jason Tatum is still very young. You got to let him be hungry for a couple of years. Him not having Jalen Brown should mean he should have a bigger season, and look for him to be a MVP candidate next year if they get rid of Jalen Brown. He's gonna get more touches. You let him really take off, and then you're like, all right, Jason Tatum's definitely that guy. We see him have that fire. Let's go give him another piece to help win a championship because they're gonna have young players. They'll have their own picks, and they'll have the bench players to move around at deadlines to get more assets to make themselves a better team. I trust their front office to do the right thing.